So I have done the thing. What is the thing? The thing is, I've read One Piece.
Don't give it up, Luffy!
Well, I read some of One Piece. To be fair, I read the first 5 volumes of One Piece, which are the first 44 chapters of the series, after having never read One Piece before a day in my life. Actually, I've never read any of the big 3 before in my life, and One Piece is the one I chose to go with because this has pretty much been the most recommended manga to me for like the last 5 years. I review a lot of manga on this channel, and of course, One Piece being pretty much the #1 most famous, most popular, the hugest fan base of any manga ever that has ever existed. Well, obviously, if you have a YouTube channel where you review manga, you're going to get a shit ton of requests of people saying, review One Piece. And for a long time, I put it off. And not because I outright decided to hate the series out of nowhere. I put it off for a couple of reasons. #1 is just the sheer amount of chapters that exist, and in a world where there are dozens and dozens of other manga that I want to get to, and people recommend me tons of things all the time, and not just manga, but movies and TV shows and anime and just so many things that exist. It's just getting the time to get around to read One Piece seemed very, very daunting to me. Also, I tend to gravitate towards stories that are, I guess, a little bit more in the seinen genre. Not that there isn't a lot of shonen out there that I enjoy, but I find as I get older in life, it's harder and harder for me to connect to shonen and shonen characters sometimes. And I'll be honest, I do enjoy stories that have a lot of darker themes and horrendous things that happen to them. Brutally depressing stories tend to be my kind of vibe. But with that hope of the indomitable will of the human spirit to rise and overcome those horrible things, that kind of seated in there as well. Those tend to be the kind of stories I gravitate towards. So for many years, I put off One Piece because I just wasn't sure if it was going to be for me. But who am I to deny giving the people what they want? After all this time, I have finally gave in and I began reading One Piece. All right, so I'm going to give you guys my honest thoughts about the first 5 volumes of One Piece, otherwise known as the first 44 chapters of the series. But I do want to say some things as I get into it. The first thing is, I'm trying to go back into kind of the shonen mindset, especially a series that began in the late 90s. I believe this series began in 1997. And is still ongoing to this day, which I believe current manga chapters are in its final arc or leading towards its final arc. I don't know. But I felt a few things as I began this series, and it's funny, how your mind connects to different things that you've experienced before, because the immediate vibes that I got from the early chapters of One Piece were reminiscent of early Dragon Ball and also reminiscent of early Hunter x Hunter. Now, I know Hunter x Hunter began, slightly after One Piece and probably gained a lot of inspiration from it. And I actually think it probably gained a lot of inspiration from it when it comes to the world building and Gon as a character, I think, at least in his early stages. Early Dragon Ball as well, you can really sense that sort of adventure vibe to it. And, I had to put myself in the mindset that this is going to be an adventure series. And that's kind of how I see it. That's how the setup is displayed, is that I'm not going into this looking for the greatest action sequences or the greatest action panels or whatever, or the deepest character development. I think the main thing the series is an adventure series where things are constantly unfolding and expanding, and the world gets bigger and bigger, and different concepts are kind of introduced, and you meet all these strange, weird, interesting characters on different islands and, throughout the ocean and stuff. That is the primary focus of this manga. At least that's what I feel from the first 5 volumes. So, I'm just trying to get myself into the mindset of, okay, this is going to be an adventure series, and that's the primary focus. And that can be a great thing. I'm a man that I love playing D&D, and it is kind of like a similar vibe where you start out very low level, and then you meet your team, your cast of characters, and then you go on your first mission where you fight an enemy that's not, super strong yet because you're not super strong yet, and then you keep exploring, and the world keeps advancing, and, adventure shit. So, I'm on board for that kind of stuff. I also noticed in the early portions, this is set up very much like you're introducing each character. Each character has their own kind of little mini arc, mini backstory. And as you're going through that, you're just kind of building the world and building the characters. And the first 5 volumes don't really get into any kind of big storylines or plot arcs or anything like that. Nothing cataclysmic, nothing world ending. You know, it doesn't get too complex or anything like that. And I actually found it to be a little bit similar to the beginning of Rurouni Kenshin, which is interesting because Oda, you know, I believe trained under, or at least was involved with the writer of Rurouni Kenshin for a little while early in his career. And the early portions of Kenshin also kind of do a similar thing where it's not really like a big story arc yet. And, you know, some people could maybe find the beginning of Kenshin to be a little bit slow, but what it's doing is introducing you into where we're at in the world and introducing you to all the characters. And it's a bunch of kind of mini arcs that kind of make up the first portion of the manga, which I think is the similar setup that One Piece is doing, because these are all a bunch of little mini arcs that seem to introduce each individual character, even up through chapter 44. And obviously in a series that's going to have thousands of chapters, I mean, I guess it would make sense that by chapter 44, you still haven't met everybody yet. I only just got introduced to Sanji in like chapter 42 or 43 or something. So it's like right there. And for context, you know, by chapter 44 of like Dragon Ball, you know, you're already into the Red Ribbon Army arc. So you're already like pretty far, pretty invested. But in One Piece, you know, 44 chapters isn't even like a fifth of the series, so there's a lot to go. So I did write down some notes, so if you ever see me looking off to the side, I'm just looking at my other screen, just of the notes I wrote down to kind of like hit little bullet points of what I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about just the series in general. I'm going to talk about all my positives, and I'll talk about some of my negatives, and then we'll kind of go from there. So the first thing, like I said, this is an adventure series first and foremost, and it definitely feels like that right from the get-go. You're introduced to Luffy as a child, like cutting himself with a knife. And I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of how I like to start a series. So, like, I'm down for that. Like, the series opens with a small child cutting his face open. So it's like, all right, okay, I'm on board. You know what? You got me. But the first chapter is very different. It very much is this backstory look at how Luffy looks up to this guy named Shanks. And I guess, like, the general premise, right? The general premise is that this one major, like, super popular pirate, Again, I forgot his name. Sorry. I should have wrote that down in my notes. Anyways, he's only introduced in like the first chapter and that's it. So he might come back later. Who knows? But he basically had this ultimate treasure. He basically conquered everything. He became the king of the pirates. He conquered everything. And he has this ultimate treasure called the One Piece, right? And this is why everyone wonders if the One Piece is real. If this treasure is real, what is the One Piece? I don't know. Is it real? I don't know. Maybe the real One Piece is the chapters that we gain along the way. I'm not sure. But now everybody is out looking for this treasure, and so there's all of these people that became pirates in order to kind of sail the seas and try to find the One Piece. And apparently in all this time, nobody's been able to find it. So again, it starts off with a premise giving you this kind of ultimate goal. The One Piece is out there somewhere. Where is it? What is it? You know, it leaves that kind of mystery dynamic for you to wonder just to begin. And then it starts to introduce its characters, and Luffy is this small child that looks up to this pirate named Shanks. And I liked some of the stuff they did here in the first chapter where they had all the characters hanging out in a bar, and then they had a bunch of ruffians come in and rough up the place. But instead of Shanks just like being a badass, you know, out of nowhere and beating the guys up, he kind of just let them do their thing and walk away. Kind of like it wasn't worth fighting them in that particular moment. And it's a good lesson that, like, I think an older person that's been through a lot of dangerous situations would do, because you recognize how serious dangerous situations can be. So, like, unless it's life-threatening or unless it's a moment where you really need to defend somebody, you don't want to have to fight. Whereas I think a young person, or like Luffy as a child, is like, why didn't you beat them up? Why didn't you stand up for yourself? Why didn't you do this? Not really realizing the level of consequence that could come, you know, in the future of that. And I think that that kind of lends itself to Luffy's character, which gives him like positive and negative outcomes in a way. So we don't really know where Shanks went. He just kind of sailed off one day, and apparently Luffy hasn't seen him. So that's another kind of mystery aspect that the manga kind of lays out for you, that he could be out there somewhere. Where is he? What's he doing? Is he dead? Is he alive? You know, that kind of stuff. So right from the get-go, you have all these different kind of mysteries of where the story could go. And the way I look at it is that I don't know if Oda had a plan from the get-go, but, you know, you want to leave yourself these breadcrumbs that if you ever decide, like as a writer, I could see if you ever decide to tackle a particular storyline, you could go in any direction. And then again, this might be a weird comparison, but One Piece is kind of set up like D&D a little bit, because in D&D you have multiple different like storylines or things that you can choose to do. It's like, do we want to look for the One Piece? Do we want to look for Shanks? Do we want to, you know, go for the Devil Fruit? Like, there's so many different like little things you could do. And I like the variety of that, because it leads the story to be like, we can go and explore any of these options at any point if we want to. But the beginning point seems to be Luffy saying that he wants to be the king of the pirates. Time skips a little bit. He's grown up, or he's a kid. He's a kid still, but not as young as he was in the first chapter. And he just sets sail. He's like, I'm going to find a crew. I'm going to be the king of the pirates. I'm going to find the One Piece. He just decides that's what he's going to do. He has this utmost confidence in himself. And I think that's the thing that is probably the most appealing about his character. Although I do want it to have some consequences, which are not shown yet. And I'm trying to give that the benefit of the doubt, because these are the early portions of the series. Like, so far, Luffy has pretty much been able to handle almost any situation that he's in. Like, he's in a little bit of danger, but like, you know, he's not really, like, basically I have not felt any kind of like fear for Luffy physically or anything. Like, I haven't felt like he's actually in danger yet. In 44 chapters, I have not felt like he's in danger. So I'm hoping that changes at some point. But I think that the thing that draws a lot of people to his character is probably that utmost confidence that he has in himself, because he's a very pure character, like similar to Goku in a way. He's very pure in the sense that he does what he wants, he says what he means, and he doesn't sugarcoat things. I like that he talks back to people that are bad guys. You know, he'll walk right up, he'll try to help somebody, he'll you know, he looks out for people, and he also is just very determined about what he wants. He's like, I am going to be the king of the pirates, and he doesn't treat it like a joke. Like, he doesn't, like, the fact that he has no resources, the fact that he doesn't have a boat, the fact that he doesn't have a crew, he doesn't let any of these things stop him from believing that he is the king of the pirates. And in a way, it's a little bit delusional, but in another way, I think that this is kind of like the core theme of the manga, because all these characters have goals that they want to accomplish. Like, he meets Kobe, who wants to join the Marines, and Luffy actually even helps him out with that, because the Marines are like, at least it was translated as Marines in the version. I don't know what the correct translation is, but Luffy recognized that he wanted to do that, and he had a moment where in front of the other Marines, he basically was talking shit to Kobe, making Kobe punch him, which showed the Marines that, oh, this guy's against pirates, he's with us. So really, him and Kobe are friends, but he did that so that Kobe could help, you know, achieve his goal as well. And you meet Zoro, who says he wants to be the greatest swordsman. And then you meet Nami, who wants to buy her own village. And then at the end, you meet Usopp, or Usopp was the next big character that was introduced. You know, and I don't know what his ultimate goal is, but he's a story to find his father. To find his father is what he's trying to do. So they all have specific goals, and I think that the core theme of the series is really going to be, like, if you want to achieve something, you have to believe that you can actually do it, and you have to start taking the steps to go out there to do it. It doesn't matter if you have a bunch of resources. It doesn't matter if you know the right people, connected the right people. It doesn't even matter if you know where the One Piece is. As long as you're going out there to get it, you're making moves, you're doing something, you're putting yourself, you know, out there on the seas, you're trying to accomplish it. And I think that that's like the main core theme, at least of the first 5 volumes, at least of the early portions of One Piece, maybe the entire series, I don't know. But it seems to be the fact that Luffy is so confident and so determined to achieve his goals that and like, it doesn't even seem like possible. Like, what are you talking about, you little weird kid, like, king of the pirates? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's that confidence that I think inspires the other characters to be like, well, yeah, I'm going to do what I want to do in life also. And, you know, I've always been that kind of person that's like, you got to at least try. You know, you got to at least attempt to try to accomplish as many of your goals as you possibly can. You can't just sit around and do nothing. Like, you got to have that call to adventure. Right. I think that we have that a lot when we're younger, which I think was why it relates to, like, you know, the shonen character archetype of like a younger character, is because we have that call to adventure, but so many people don't take it. And so many people don't go and look for their One Piece. So many people stay behind. So many people get caught up in whatever else, and life takes them in different directions. And, like, you know, their dreams get beaten out of them more and more and more the more time goes on. But then you see somebody like Luffy, who, for all intents and purposes, is completely out of his element. But at the same time, by being out of his element, he forces himself into that element. So, like, he has actually a very good chance to do it simply because he believes he can do it. But let me talk about some of the other stuff here. Okay, so we got to talk about the devil fruit stuff. So obviously One Piece seems to take place in a fantasy world, but it's not super ridiculous. You know, it's kind of well, it's grounded in the sense that, like, people don't just have superpowers, right? So it's kind of like a more primitive, you know, it's like pirate era. So there's ships and villages and there's the military and stuff like that. There's some strange animals, but I think that they're supposed to be, like, at least reminiscent to animals that we understand. Like, I don't know if there's like a sea monster in the first chapter, so there's probably weird stuff in the ocean, but so far it hasn't been, like, super exaggeratory when it comes to, like, the fantasy stuff, at least not yet. But there's these things called devil fruits that if you eat them, they give you some kind of special ability or some kind of magical ability, but in return, you're no longer able to swim. And I thought that was just the side effect to the devil fruit that Luffy ate, but apparently it's the side effect to every devil fruit. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this is the part that I'm trying to understand. So these devil fruits exist, but are people aware of them? Because some people in the manga seem to be aware of them. Other people aren't. Some people think that they're not real. So they can't be common. Like, they got to be extremely hard to find. But I guess I'm still a little bit lacking on the lore of devil fruit. Like, where do they come from? Why do some people know about them? And why don't other people know about them? I wasn't sure. As well, so the devil fruit that Luffy eats in the first chapter was kind of played off as a joke, but he needed to have it because, I mean, without it, he probably wouldn't win all these fights. So he eats a devil fruit that basically turns his body into rubber, so he can stretch, he can bend, he can, like, blow himself up really fat, he, like, bullets can bounce off of him and stuff. He has like stretchy, like, Mr. Fantastic abilities, which made me really confused because there's a moment where he meets with Buggy, who is a pirate that dresses like a clown, and Buggy puts him into a cage, but he was stuck in the cage. But I kept thinking, like, if he has rubbery stretchy powers, why can't he just stretch his way through the bars? Because he seems to be able to, like, stretch his body and contort his body in all these weird ways, but, like, he couldn't stretch himself through the bars of the cage. I don't know if that's... Is there a reason why he couldn't do that? I don't know. I didn't understand that. But regardless, that is Luffy's superpower, at least for now, or at least until there's others. Now, I don't really know, again, like, the lore of the devil fruit. So apparently, once you eat it, you just have that ability forever, because Luffy ate it when he was a kid in the first chapter, and he's had it ever since. So once you eat it, like, that's it. Like, for good, like, you have it. Unless there's, like, lore in the future that says that you aren't. Also, there's different devil fruit that can do different things. I'm assuming this is just, like, the power system of the manga, because Buggy ate a devil fruit and he was able to, like, detach his limbs and stuff and still live. So I'm assuming the devil fruit is just basically Oda's excuse to make magical abilities and have, like, weird random shit happen, which is cool. You know, again, like, that's again kind of like a D&D thing where it's like, you know, you drank this potion, now this weird shit's happening. But it doesn't seem to have really a downside except for the ability, like, it gets rid of your ability to swim, which, if you're a pirate, is bad because you're on the ocean a lot. You might have to swim. So yeah, but I do want a little bit more of a, I guess I do want a little bit more of a consequence to the devil fruit. Also, if it's called devil fruit, I got to imagine that it's not overly good. Like, there's got to be something dark about it, right? Unless that's just a bad translation. I don't know. As far as the other characters, okay, so all of this beginning portion of the first 5 volumes that I read are kind of assembling the team. So I've known about all these characters for a long time. I just haven't read the manga. So I knew about Nami and Zoro, Usopp, and then Sanji gets introduced, like, at the very tail end. I'm not even going to talk about Sanji because, like, he gets introduced at the very tail end of what I read. So Zoro was first, and he was cool. His introduction was cool. I liked his reasoning for wanting to be the best swordsman because there was this girl that he grew up with that passed away, and he's kind of doing it for her, like, to honor her because she was always better than him, so he wants to become the best swordsman. But I felt like so far, since Zoro was introduced, I feel like like they haven't really explored his character too much. Like he seems just to kind of be like on board for things. Like he's just with Luffy and he's like, okay, I guess we're doing this now. Like at first it seemed like him and Luffy were going to go like back and forth a little bit, but so far, like his introduction was good and his characterization when he was introduced was good. But I feel like after that, he's just kind of been like along for the ride. And I just want like more out of him so far, but we haven't really gotten it. And then Nami was introduced. She kind of like runs cons on people. Like she'll pretend that she's in trouble or something and then rob somebody. You know, she's got a thing against pirates that she doesn't want to be involved with them, but then inadvertently becomes involved with them. She seems cool so far. I don't know if it's a bad thing that I want to ship Zoro with Nami. Is that bad? I don't know. Is shipping bad in general? I don't know. I want them to interact more. And then Usopp. All right, so the introduction of Usopp, or I guess I should talk about Buggy, but I mean, he wasn't really, I mean, he was definitely like the first, he's definitely like the first antagonist, like the first real antagonist, but I don't know. I don't really have much to say about him. Like he was a bad guy, you know. I don't know. I don't have much to say about Buggy. But the Usopp thing, I'm a little bit in the middle on as well because, first of all, I've always known Usopp, you know, his character design to have a big nose, but the fact that he was continuously telling lies, and I'm like, oh, he has a big nose because he tells lies, like Pinocchio. I don't know. I don't know about that one. But the whole segment introducing Usopp, I felt like it did drag on a little bit too long for what it was because I knew that these were kind of low tier villains. So I wasn't too terribly invested. I knew that Luffy was going to easily overcome them, which he did. But the storyline for Usopp was good because, you know, he wants to find his dad and his dad's a pirate and his mom was passing away. So he made up these lies in her last days that the pirates were coming. She was coming, you know, he was coming back. Of course, he never did. So, you know, he just kind of kept those lies going. And, you know, it was a good, like, character building moment. Like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that aspect of his character. I like that. I like that he kept telling stories to the rich girl that lost her parents and stuff because they would have that kind of similarity there. They would have that kind of connection. But he did leave the island, so I don't know if they are also an item or if that's never going to be addressed again, if she's never going to show up again. I don't know. But he decided to leave the island and join Luffy. So they're on their adventure now. And again, we're just kind of building the team. We're building the core team. And now I got to where they get really hungry and they want a chef. So they're looking for one. And then they come across Sanji, who's waiting tables. And what I know about Sanji is, like, I know he's like the, what is he? Like the resident perverted character or the simp character. So anyways, he was just introduced. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, you know, I know this manga is so long and 44 chapters in and we're still just kind of introducing the main cast. I mean, I guess it makes sense for a manga that's going to go on this long, but I'm hoping I get through these chapters and then get to like an actual longer ongoing story arc that gets a little bit more intense where I can actually feel danger for the characters and, you know, get a little bit more invested because as of right now, you know, I enjoy the concept. I enjoy the theme. I like the idea of this world of discovery and the potential of where the story could go. Like that looming potential of not knowing where it's going to go and like the idea that you have this entire world to explore. That's a really cool concept. But because I'm still in these early stages, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm kind of sifting through it a little bit. Also, you know, I guess I'll get into my negatives. So my negatives, I guess, would be that, you know, just the fact that Luffy hasn't really, you know, faced any kind of real challenge or real threat yet. You know, I want to see the characters put through a little bit more. I want to see Zoro expand a little bit more. Like they were introduced, but since they've been introduced, I just don't feel like they've, you know, I've gotten like enough from them yet. And obviously this one is a nitpick, but, you know, it has to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. But some of Oda's artwork, it's not bad. You know what I mean? It's a style. It's a particular art style. I can't draw as good as Oda. But sometimes his, like, over-exaggeration of characters' faces or, like, their body proportions and stuff, it just throws me off. Like, I'm, like, invested in the series, and I'm, like, taking it seriously, and then all of a sudden there's this weird, wacky character whose mouth is bigger than his body, and I'm just like, what? Or some guy that's, like, stuck in a in a treasure chest that has this giant afro that's bigger than his body, and I'm just like, I just, Oda, man, can you just tone it down just a little bit, man? Just a little bit, man. Just a tiny bit. Just tone it down a little bit on the character designs. Anyways, I've made it 5 volumes through One Piece, so I have officially read the series, or at least a portion of the series. Now, I was on camera for this video because I know that Shueisha and, like, whoever owns the manga, I know they're very, very temperamental when it comes to copyright stuff. So I tried to show a few panels throughout this video, but I can't show a lot of panels because, you know, I know that they'll get it taken down. So that's why I didn't write a script for this video, and I just did it on camera because I didn't, you know, if I wrote a script, what would I put as the image over it? Because I know that Shueisha is really, really temperamental about the One Piece manga. So that's why I was on camera. Now, I am going to read some more of One Piece, but as of how I talk about it is going to depend kind of on you guys. If you want frequent updates like this, like if you want me to review volumes 6 through 10 and do another video, I can do it that way. But that'll only be if you guys actually like this video. So if the video gets a decent amount of likes, comments, and interaction in the algorithm and actually does decently, like let's say, you know, if this video can get at least like 5K views, at 5 to 10, if we can get it there, then, you know, I can continue doing the series like this. If not, you know, I'll just read it kind of like at my leisure or when I have time, and then I'll do infrequent updates, or, you know, I'll talk about it here and there, maybe on live streams. I don't really know. I don't know how I want to tackle this, because to read like 1,000 some chapters and do a video, it's like, how do you summarize 1,000 chapters? Like, I can't just do one overall review of One Piece, because it's like, how the hell do you do that, right? Plus, you know, with Shueisha being temperamental about the manga pages and stuff, like I can't show a lot of that. So this would be the way to review it if this is what you guys want. You know, and I want to make sure it's something that you guys want, something that you guys like, because a lot of times I've tried to do these ongoing series on YouTube, but the videos don't do well, and then like they continuously tank as they go down. So it's like, I want to make it worth it to do it. So if you guys want to have more frequent updates of my One Piece reviews, please just like the video, comment, we'll try to get it to like 5K likes. And if it does, then we'll keep doing it this way. I also have to continuously be honest with you guys. So if I do have issues with the manga, like, I'm not going to sit around and just like praise it as the best manga ever, but I'm also not here to shit on it. I'm here to just read it and give you guys my honest opinions, which is what I try to do with this video. So if you're the most like hardcore One Piece fan and you're like banging your head against the wall because, you know, things I said you didn't like, I apologize. Or if you wanted me to come on here and just say like, this is overrated, you know, whatever, I can't really say that because it's only been 5 volumes, but I have to, you know, I do have my positives, I have my negatives, I got to be honest about it, so that's how I'm going to do the reviews. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Do appreciate it. Like I said, please give a thumbs up, comment, help it on the algorithm. It's been like 6 years reviewing manga on this channel, so I guess it's about time I got to One Piece. So wish me luck on my journey, and hopefully I'll find out if it's real.